So over 2 years ago, I played Assassin's Creed Unity. I actually played all of the Assassin's Creed games for the first time. And since then, I haven't checked out any of them since, apart from Odyssey. I went back to replay that the other day, and you guys seem to enjoy that video a lot. And it seems like more people every day are coming back to the old Assassin's Creed games. And by old, I just mean ones before the newest release. Of course, Odyssey isn't an old game, but a lot of people are sort of mixed about it. There's some people that love it and some hate it. But it is cool that people are wanting to check it out and are actually looking to see if it's worth playing. And then there's the certain game in the franchise, Assassin's Creed Unity, which definitely had a mixed reception, let's say, upon launch. And since then, it's actually become quite liked by a good part of the community, but there is still a handful of people that still despise the game, or just don't give it a chance at all. And what I'm saying is that it's similar to Odyssey, where it's a bit mixed in terms of how people view the game. So I think what a better time to check it out now, and it's been a while, and for me personally, I actually quite like the game. I put it in, I believe, my 6th or 7th spot on the entire franchise, in terms of just rating and ordering the games. And I'll go into it and why I think that. And of course, like the Odyssey video, the first video was more about anyone that hasn't played the game and just explaining it in detail, you know, what it's about for anyone that doesn't know. And then the second review was more of a retrospective and just my overall thoughts. So there's 2 different styles, and it's going to be similar with this one, where it's more just my thoughts on the game and what I think the pros and cons are, rather than going into every individual aspect of what the game has. Otherwise, I'd just be repeating myself. But if you do want to check out the original video, I will put a link in the description, and let's get into Assassin's Creed Unity in 2025. So starting off, I want to talk about the setting of Unity. It's all set in Paris during the French Revolution, and it has to be up there in terms of my favourite settings, and it's mainly just because of the detail in the buildings and the architecture, which goes hand in hand with the opportunities for parkour. They must have spent a good amount of time on the world building, and it is clear because I spent basically the entire game just jumping on rooftops, and every single building is connected in some way, with way more ledges and just objects to grab onto compared to, let's say, Syndicate. And that's probably one of the worst settings for actual jumping parkour and building momentum, because not only are the buildings so spread out in that game, and there's not as many added extras to the buildings, like bridges, ramps, or things to swing on, but then again, they also implemented vehicles in that game, and also the zip wire, so you do that instead. But just the visuals in Unity, it's so surprising how good the game looks now. And just the detail in the stonework on the buildings and the streets. The textures, they just stand out so much. The lighting is probably the best part as well, it's amazing. It's so smooth and lifelike compared to any other AC game, just in terms of the realism. And you'll know if you have played it, there's something about Unity's visuals that just stand out. And a big thing that I hear so many people still base the game around is the buggy mess it was at launch, which just truly damaged its reputation. Like, people completely disregard the game because of it, and even, 10 years later, which is mental. It's been a decade, so most of these issues are long gone now. And when you play it today, I had near to no issues. I didn't encounter any actual bugs from what I remember, but it is certain areas that could have been done better and smoother. And that's with certain moments in the parkour, so there's certain bits that feel a little bit clunky, mainly when climbing, like it doesn't actually want you to move and it's not as responsive sometimes. The same with exiting covers in combat. It takes a bit of getting used to, is what I'm saying. But jumping and building the momentum is fine and looks incredible because of how good the animations are. It's so free-flowing, and even if you aren't good at parkour or aren't doing that much, the game still makes it look so cool because of the advanced animations and the movement. Like your character Arno, his body, it just moves in all sorts of ways compared to the newer games. So it makes parkour so fun to look at as a visual, and it's my favourite part of the game. It seems like everything I'm talking about just keeps going back to the parkour system, but it's just crazy how much they did improve it in this game, and I was happy to see, them build on from this, and for some reason they took a step back. It's never been as good, I think, since this game. Of course, the animations, they do make it look cool and also easier, but you do still have to think about where you are going when doing parkour. It's quite flexible in where Arno jumps, so you have to look at certain points, and all at the right time, so you do fully control it. And then there's times where you don't land exactly where you wanted, but let's say you make a mistake, it's still going to look cool either way, and it's quite forgiving. In areas like this where he jumps so far and no human could even do that. So I guess in the realism aspect, it may take a step back. But I remember seeing so many compilations of the best parkour in Unity, and it is insane. I mean, no wonder people still play the game, solely just to, you know, free roam and just parkour. And the combat though, that was definitely more challenging, let's say. Again, the animations make it look good no matter what you do. It's like you're dancing and fighting, but parrying and dodging is a key feature this time round, working on your timing, and it's not as easy, which I can see why some people don't like it. I do understand that. I didn't mind doing it myself, I just think it sort of takes away from the variety of it all because it was more strategic. Like, you can't perform as many moves or different attacks. It's more about the timing and less spam attacking, which then also makes it a bit more slow. So it just depends on your preference really. And keeping on that strategic feeling, they also push you to use different items such as smoke bombs, poison bombs, money bags, and a phantom blade. And this all helps with being stealthy, which is a big part, especially with the crowd density in this game. The streets are full of NPCs and crowds just to blend in with social stealth. I did see myself doing it way more in this game, even though I'm not great at it. And that also brings me on to the variety of weapons. There's tons to choose from in this game in terms of one-handed ones, long and heavy melees. Of course, varying in their damage as well. You can also upgrade and boost them, but the designs are great, which adds on to that character customization. And don't get me started on the gear design. It's the best it's ever been in the series. You can spend so long editing the outfit of Arno and its colour patterns, but even altering like each individual body part, like the torso of the outfit, the legs, the forearms, or the headgear. And even though I didn't have it all unlocked, it still made him look insane pretty much, even early on in the game, as you can see by the gameplay, and you can definitely have a lot of fun with it. Again, another part which I wish they sort of added on to. There's also guns like pistols and rifles, a fair few to choose from. Not as many as the melees, just because I think they don't vary as much. And then an upgrade from the previous games too, where the pistols can now fire multiple shots before you have to reload. And this all adds on to that combat where it's more strategic and they want you to try different stuff rather than just spam attacking. And now let's talk about Arno, the main character of the story. I know a lot of people find him sort of boring, and that's just because he's more reserved and he's more serious, but I think he's fairly underrated. He does have depth to him, and I also loved how they explored this arc with Elise. They really took time with it in this game, and they should do it more, to be honest. It adds so much more emotional weight, I suppose, to the story, and it got me thinking, like, even in the French Revolution, there's still this romantic area where you just see this contrast between the chaos. And as a whole though, it's not the craziest story in the series, but it's not awful. There's just not many moments that you know, gasp at. There's not many big moments. And some missions in the story, in terms of the main ones, they aren't crazy. They do feel a bit repetitive sometimes. Of course, there's the dreaded tailing missions, but definitely not as much as earlier games. The best part for me is the assassination sequences. And they usually are in most of the games. Those are the moments where it is a big thing. I think this franchise does it so well in those black box type missions where you have the freedom to take out a target in any way you like, with, you know, different entrances and the methods of killing, stealthily or loud, and relying on timing, etc. And I do speak about it all the time. And as for this game, it does have some of my favourite ones, especially one of the earlier ones. So you're inside this massive church and it looks insane, with a huge crowd outside and the organ music playing and the talking as you know, stealthily walk from above. It's just so good, and that's sort of why you play Assassin's Creed, to get that feeling. But I must say, the modern day story part of this is so forgettable. I honestly forgot it was in the game. Not only did they not even touch on it that much, but it just doesn't even provide anything. It seems like the early games, it was such a big part, and sometimes it was like you actually cared about the modern day story and you sort of couldn't wait to go back to it. Whereas this game, it just lacks it, and when you are in it, it's not terrible, but it just doesn't know what to do with it in a way, and it's just a bit disappointing. And there's no like memorable characters in it. But even with all that said, I think AC Unity, for me, I'll always like it, and of course I'm not going to change people's views on it. I'm not trying to, you know, fully change your perspective, but I just think everyone should give it a go in 2025 if they haven't already recently. But there's no denying that they actually put effort into the game. It wasn't like they rushed it or anything. Of course, minus the bugs on launch, I'm sure it was a mess. But apart from that, there's nothing in this game that I truly despise, or there's nothing to really hate on. Of course, there's some areas that could be improved, and that's why it's not my favourite game. But with the amount of hate that it does get, and I do say that, but it definitely seems like recently I see a lot more love to the game than I do hate now. And it is cool how people are actually giving it a chance, and majority of the time they do actually enjoy enjoy it when they do. Another thing is that it's one of the latest games before they transitioned into the whole RPG open world aspect. Of course, I know there was Syndicate, but it is one of the very late ones. So it means that you're still getting that similar vibe with the early games like 2, Brotherhood, etc. But just with better tech and just way more modern day, mechanics and just the feeling of it all. Whether that be the visuals or the parkour and the overall just gameplay, which does feel polished. And who knows, the game may end up being one of your favourites. And that is my thoughts on revisiting this game after, well, 2 and a bit years. And let me know if you actually want to see me go back through all the games. I mean, like I said, the Odyssey video, it seems like a lot of people are returning to that. Of course, I put that poll out the other day and Unity did win, so again, that does sort of seem that people are wanting to know if it is worth it. And if you did enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button down below. And if you enjoy single player and also multiplayer games as well, then that's what this channel does focus on. I have multiple playlists on a selection of games, so you can subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. And if you want to support me any further, then you can become a member of the channel at either level 1 or 2 to gain access to various perks. Thank you all for the support and watching until the very end. And that was Assassin's Creed Unity in 2025, and bye bye.